Hi, hello, my name's Ollie Bliss and this is my channel Book Draw. For those who don't know, I enjoy looking at queer fiction and occasionally I create images out of those books. Today, however, I have a wonderful opportunity. I am here talking with Alex from What Page Are You On? That's right, isn't it? Like, it's all one word. Yeah. We're doing a little collab, so head over to his channel and check out our little discussion. He is trying to get the BookTube community talking more to each other, so he's going to start doing more one-on-one interviews and questions. And on my side today, we're just going to do a bit of a discussion around male-on-male fiction and where we would like to see that representation going. Alex, do you want to just say a little bit about yourself and your channel for those who don't know?
Sure. As Ollie said, my name is Alex. I have a BookTube channel called What Page Are You On? I really enjoy, sort of, for the lack of a better word, interrogating books about their themes, characters, and story, and how all of those things combined kind of make a experience for the reader, and finding out what other people think of the books I'm reading as well. So.
That was a lovely summary, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Just like, putting it together. And you're a twin as well, aren't you?
Yes, I am a twin. So, fun fact.
What's that actually like? I find that just a bit mind-blowing and fascinating.
I think for me, having a twin, it was really easy because my sister and I, my twin sister, we have 3 older siblings, and so our second oldest sibling is 2 years older. So, and then our older siblings are like 6 to 7 years older. So we always stuck by each other's side growing up, and just it was like always having a friend around. So it was really easy. And even if we were a boy and a girl, we in large were always treated the same when we were younger. Even wearing like matching twin clothes, like that stereotype is true. Like our mom will just buy 2 of everything and we can just wear it.
So what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about a previous video of yours, which was a little while back now, I think, actually, but it kind of stood out to me in terms of the discussion that you were having, because you were reviewing the film The Beginners.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of like recollecting my memory of what I was talking about, but I know when it comes to that sense of absent, or like the whole concept of betrayal, it's really funny because normally in films where it's someone having to, or so in the case of the film Beginners, it's about this son finding out that his father is gay, and then his father is also dying, but he's also in a relationship as he's dying. So for the son, it's a bit of a shock because, of course, he exists. So a lot of people, I think, the first thing right off the bat is equating that your sense of having a child also equates to a very heteronormative lifestyle. So for the son, I think his sense of betrayal is his own existence, because there's also a lot about his mother, who's no longer alive in the film, I don't think, in the present, but he has a very confusing relationship with her because it's assumed that the mother feels strained because of her relationship with his father. But usually I feel like it's where, in this case, the son's dad having to explain himself to his son, but it's the opposite. It's the son feeling the one out of place with this story going on in front of him. So that was a great sort of turning it on its head, where there's that difference, because it felt much more like it was his dad that was the center of it all and like the normal part of their life, and the son is the one that feels ostracized, whether that be because of his relationship with his parents or even with his own sort of romantic subplot with this woman in the film. So yeah, that sense of betrayal I think is really immediate, and I think the movie does so good at having those layers of discussing that stuff. So
yeah, because I like the 2 examples which you brought in as well, in terms of Aristotle and Dante discover the secret of the universe, and Simon versus the Homo sapien agenda, where it has family members who are supportive in different ways, and that space is looked at in a different way, and how that impacts on what happens next to that central character, or how they build up a sense of trust with their family members. Because I think there has been a long-standing arc of abandonment for young gay men who have to break away from everything that they know and start afresh, and it's more about that challenge. And I like instead that there's a direction of it's okay to be gay, and then it's more about them working out other areas of their life. It's not like the central theme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with those two other examples, Aristotle and Dante and Sáenz versus the Homo sapiens agenda, I know you also brought up masculinity, and then it's like you said, it doesn't have to be about the sexuality being the focal point of this huge like decision moment in someone's life. But for a lot of people, that is in terms of like the coming of age story, which both of those stories deal with. But I think it's interesting with Aristotle and Dante in particular because there's Aristotle. I'm trying not to spoil anything for people that haven't read it, but with the sense of like to come in terms of sexuality, you have to sacrifice your masculinity, at least for men, with these types of stories. But I think they're getting better. Like you said, I think the mainstream more is about being very vulnerable, and that makes you more confident in your sexuality. But with some characters in that book, it was a bit confusing because I feel like Aristotle and Dante are meant to be both ends of the spectrum, but then with one of them, the one that is more comfortable with their sexuality, who I won't say, but I'm sure you know, they're interested in like art and very forward-thinking thoughts and stuff, and they become sort of like not put on the back burner, but just the one where there are certain things that happen to that character, the one that's interested in art, some violent things, and I think violence is so strange to also equate to sexuality because I don't know why often those two have to go together when it comes to stories like this. Of course, with stories like it's very schemed together to where usually conflict resolution. It makes sense to put that in stories because otherwise it sort of just doesn't go anywhere. So I can see it that way. So.
But yeah, because that is the kind of historic arc, isn't it, in terms of overcoming a physical conflict in some way, or something which is directed around an argument, rather than maybe like an emotional battle, but or navigating a space in a different way in that sense. I like that where there are stories which start looking at that direction more instead. Do you know Patrick Ness more than this?
I don't know more than this, but I am familiar with. I know he helped do something like A Monster Calls, which wasn't his story. I think it was someone named Siobhan, but I think he like helped make that. It's like put it into the world. But I am familiar with Ness, so.
Because with more than this, he the lead character dies right at the start of the book, and and it's about like, what happened to him? Is he dead? Is he or is he what's actually happened to him? Is it like a different reality? That type of thing. What I liked about it in particular was the fact that it was a coming of age story, but it was told in a way which was completely distinct and separate from any other kind of coming of age story that I've ever come across. And part of it was him grappling with his sexuality, but because he's completely taken out of the world and put into this other one, and it's almost like a kind of, could this be purgatory or not? So it's him resolving all those issues, him going through this process of understanding his conflict, but it's just told in a completely separate, different way. For me, that I felt like that was a really striking new direction for queer literature. I was also interested in terms of you touching on fatherhood as well, though, because I always find that part quite interesting, particularly for gay men, in terms of their relationship with, is that something they even want, and where are those narratives as well?
Yes. Thinking back to beginners with the son and the father, their relationship, it's really interesting because it makes you wonder with the son, his character, he's like quite meek and he isn't very boastful or loud. He's very soft-spoken. He's actually, in a way, I wonder if it's meant to mirror his father, because they're pretty similar. They're both they always listen first and then act second. The father is maybe even more outgoing, at least of what we know in the film. But it makes you, at least the first thing I questioned was, oh, which is backwards thinking in my part, but it was like, if the son is like the father, maybe the son is gay, and that's what the relationship of the film's going to be about. So even in my mind, I automatically just assumed if we're already given this first gay character, then my first thought is, are we allowed to have a second one? And then if it isn't a second one, then I don't know. My process is really interesting with that film because it kept turning on its head for me. But with fatherhood, I think in that film at least, it's very convoluted, which is good, which is what I want. I'd much rather it be, there's layers in that film versus there being this direct sort of repelling, because the son doesn't just repel from his father's newfound sexuality. He doesn't repel because he doesn't like it. He's just confused by it. And I think it's very also understanding for a lot of people. You can't just assume if someone doesn't like you for your sexuality, it's because they don't like that sexuality, but also just because it's surprising. Like, it's something you're trying to learn. You're allowed to learn, which I think Beginners really emphasizes, which I think is very good. So.
Okay, so is that part of why it is Beginners? It's the beginning of them learning.
Yeah, there are a lot of beginnings, whether being relationships or beginning. It's never too late, I guess, to begin your relationship with your parents or something, with your life, with other things. So yes, I would say so.
So personal question as well. Is children something that you would aspire to, or does that interest you?
And you said children?
Yeah, having a child or adopting, or...
I think maybe. I think it's... I see children as very practical. Like, if I ever had a child, I would want all the resources available to them first before I decided to just act on an impulse, which I'm not saying people do, but I would be very... am I financially available to literally raise a child? And so yeah, my sister, actually, my twin sister, she just my nephew was born in May of last year, so sort of living vicariously through her to find out all the things she either forgot or is learning, I think is interesting. But I think you can never prepare to have a child, really. No one is prepared, but one day maybe. But yeah.
So what are our future narratives, or what is the direction for male queer fiction?
I think the future... I think our next era is probably going to be having a lot more stories where it's not about... I think mostly what it rings about is masculinity. I think the whole idea of being this role model of masculinity and family values or something, the leader of whatever, I don't think that's going to be necessarily important anymore, because of stories like Call Me by Your Name or something. We know saying retroactive isn't right, because just because you're more vulnerable doesn't mean you're losing anything. I think it's teaching more about being vulnerable doesn't mean anything about your sexuality. It just means that's who you are as a person. I think people are thinking much more sexuality second than that being your determining factor in life. So I think the future is more about what shapes my personality based on my interests or my hobbies, or my own background and personal experience other than that stuff. I don't know. I think it'll be I think it's going in the right direction, so to speak. But I feel like that's what everyone would say, from ages ago. And no one, I don't think anyone could have guessed about now our era. I feel is very pronoun-based, whether people say he, him, they. So I think that's great too. But I don't think it's something anyone would have expected. That's becoming very commonplace in and outside of stories, but in real life too. So.
Yeah. I think that's quite an exciting area, non-binary terminology and thinking about language in a different way. It definitely opens up thinking about how we act amongst each other and what defines us in different ways on a just more of a being level than a gendered performative level, which I think is definitely an exciting kind of progression. I'm hopeful for that. Thank you very much, Alex. This is
You're very
lovely.
welcome.
Is there any kind of things that people should be looking out for on your channel coming up?
Well, like Ollie was saying, we're pretty much a similar thing of this, what we're doing on my channel soon. I don't know when I'll get to that, but hopefully soon. As far as my channel, you can expect a lot of me trying to process my thoughts through wrap-ups, which are my favorite videos to make. Yeah, just normal stuff, reviews, and tags. I'm becoming much more of a tag person. So.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, and we will see you all again soon. Right. Bye.
Bye.